True or false, fact or cap, do you only pay 4% tax in Puerto Rico?
I don't know, bro. When I was there, like,
Yeah, you
it
loved
just felt
it.
right.
Yeah.
It just felt right. I loved it.
What's going on YouTube? Attorney Tom here. Puerto Rico has been in the news a lot recently because our dear friend Loganpaul has decided to move there. And contrary to what Logan says, he's probably not moving to Puerto Rico for the beaches or the lifestyle. He's probably moving because of the taxes. That's because Puerto Rico, although it's a U.S. territory, operates outside the jurisdiction of the United States tax code and IRS. And with that said, over the past few years, they've enacted a very controversial tax structure to try to incentivize wealthy individuals to move to the island. So the purpose of this video is to go over how the Puerto Rican tax structure works and ultimately answer the question, will Loganpaul only be paying 4% in taxes after he moves there? And as always, I just want to say thank you. We're growing like crazy, y'all. I think we passed 160,000 subscribers. And if you're thinking about subscribing to this channel, I ask that you strongly consider it. My goal is to always make content that is worthy of your time. So in general, there's two main types of taxes, corporate tax and individual tax. And we're going to go over both of them as it relates to Puerto Rico. With respect to corporate tax, according to everything I've seen online, the reason for these tax incentives is Puerto Rico really wants to try to market itself as a service export capital of the world. Now, what's a service export? Well, it's a corporation that provides a service, but it exports that service, unlike a product. So essentially what that means is you can run a service-based company that operates in other areas, but as long as you're headquartered in Puerto Rico, it applies Puerto Rican law. For instance, a law firm. A law firm is a service-based industry. I provide service of legal counseling and litigation, all that kind of stuff. I could be located in Puerto Rico. I could still service my clients in Texas. I could have a branch in Texas, but so long as I had a Puerto Rican company, this law could still apply. Another example of an export service company might be a social media agency, a content creation hub, such as one that Loganpaul runs. And under Puerto Rican law, corporations are taxed at 4%. But it's not quite that simple. There's one little caveat, and when I say little, I literally mean little. I'm not trying to use that as a figure of speech for a big caveat. It actually is little. All you have to do is pay yourself a reasonable salary. That reasonable salary will be taxed at a normal U.S. tax code rate, but then everything else over and above that will be charged the 4% rate. So let me give you an example. Let's say I ran my law firm, and my law firm generated $100 million in profit. Well, under Puerto Rican law, I would have to pay myself a reasonable salary. What's a reasonable salary for running a business? $100,000, $200,000 a year. And that first $100,000 or $200,000, whatever my salary is, would be taxed at a normal United States tax rate. But then the $99,800,000 would be subject to only the 4% tax rate. So I take my reasonable salary, and then the profit, what's left over in the company, gets taxed at 4%, and then I can take that money out after that. And presumably when you're making millions and millions of dollars, your reasonable salary doesn't really mean all that much to you. Also, while we're on the subject of corporate tax, there's a 0% dividend tax rate, which I don't really think needs that much of an explanation. Now let's talk about the individual investor side of the tax laws. Now there are some requirements for this to take into effect. For instance, you have to purchase real estate in Puerto Rico within 2 years of moving. Also, you have to pay an applicable application fee, and I think you have to donate $10,000 a year to charity, a Puerto Rican ran charity. But I think the benefits for extremely wealthy individuals probably far outweighs those de minimis costs. But once you meet the Puerto Rican requirements, under Puerto Rico law, individual investors will pay 0% capital gains. So for anybody who has lots of money in the stock market or in cryptocurrency or other investment vehicles subject to property gains tax, you would pay 0% on the appreciation in value of your capital gains, which again is huge. And you could see how that might attract somebody in the trading space, because you could make trades in stock or cryptocurrency 1,000 times a day and not ever have to worry about capital gains. And especially as more and more of these market opportunities become available exclusively on the internet, well, there's no real need to be anywhere else. Now, in order to qualify for these taxes, you do actually have to live in Puerto Rico. You have to spend at least 183 days a year in Puerto Rico. Your business has to be located in Puerto Rico, although you can have sub branches, but the nucleus of your business, your brain of your business, your headquarters of your business needs to be in Puerto Rico. And the government is going to look for other factors such as, did you move your family there? Do you have a driver's license there? Are your kids enrolled in school there? They're going to be trying to weed out people who are just fabricating a narrative that they live in Puerto Rico when they really don't. You actually have to be there. And just as we were wrapping up this video, my assistant behind the camera, Matthew, asked, is there any time requirements of having to be there? And I'm not really too sure the answer of that. I think what has to happen is it's not so much how long you've been there, but once you get there, you have to apply for this particular status. So it just is a matter of time of when your application gets approved. It's not necessarily like, I have to go sit on the beach for a year and then it gets approved. I'm also not a tax lawyer, and I don't know. So in short, to answer the question of this video, will Loganpaul only pay 4% tax in Puerto Rico? And the answer to that is it's mostly true. Like I said, he's going to have to pay himself a reasonable salary, which is going to be taxed at a normal rate, but that reasonable salary is going to be reasonable. It's going to be relatively low for someone who's making as much revenue as Loganpaul and his company. But presumably Loganpaul will qualify for both the corporate exemption and the individual exemption, so he's not going to be paying capital gains on his crazy NFTs or any of his other social digital assets, which presumably are only going to go up in value. Okay, that's it for today's video. I thought this was an interesting subject. I know this tax haven is actually very controversial, especially within Puerto Rico, because a lot of the citizens feel like it doesn't really promote or stimulate the Puerto Rico economy. It just helps these individuals hoard their wealth. And I'm not really here to debate that. I'm just letting you know how it exists today, or what exists today. So let me know in the comments, now that you know about this, are you interested in moving to Puerto Rico? Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please make sure you hit that like button. It really helps push the video out to the YouTube algorithm. Leave comments down below, any questions, concerns, topics you want me to cover in the future. Thanks again. I'll see you later.